In honor of Believeathon, let's rank my top 10 middle grades. Hello Bookworm family, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, I'm Danny. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button down below. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell because I am posting lots of new content all the time. And if you're not already following me on Instagram, please be sure to do that. It is at _dancing_bookworm. I post on there full book reviews and bookish content. So you guys are gonna have to excuse me if I'm tripping over some words today. I'm really stuffed up from allergies. It's just that time of year. The weather is nice and warm here in central New York now, and my nose is feeling it. So people have been mowing their lawns like crazy, and I can't stop itching my face either. I'm so sorry. I know I'm not supposed to be touching my face right now, but it's just gonna keep happening because my allergies are so bad. But I thought in honor of Believeathon, which is a reading challenge hosted by Gav over at How to Train Your Gavin, that I would be ranking my top 10 middle grade books today. So even just looking at the stack right now, most of my middle grades have changed over the last 2 years when I've started reading more of them, because the books that I had in my top 5 for the longest time are now down pretty low in the ratings. Some new books, even one that I just read last week, is pretty high up. So it's interesting to see how they have changed over the last couple years, given that middle grade has been something that I've become really passionate about reading and really thoroughly enjoyed just diving into it. I think the great thing about middle grade is that even in the realistic fiction ones, there's always this sense of like comfort and magic, even if there's no magic in it. It's just a magical reading experience. They're quick, they're short, they're fun, and they usually have a really good moral surrounding them. Even if it's not always a happy end, there's always a good moral in it. So I am excited to get into these, so we're going to jump right in. The first one that I have is The Giver by Lois Lowry. Now, this book used to be probably in the number 2 or 3 spot for the longest time. I read this book in 7th grade and have read it a few times since then. However, it's moved down to number 10 over the last couple years due to reading the series. The series is not good. Everything past the first book really was a letdown. I've just finished reading Messenger, and Gathering Blue I read a couple years ago, but I have one book left of the series, and I am just not liking the other two in the series at all. But The Giver is still one of my favorites. I love this book. It is so perfectly science fictional, which is what I enjoyed so much about it that the series kind of ruined. The series kind of made it more fantastical, which I was not really digging. But this is about a boy named Jonas who at his ceremony where he was getting his career was skipped over, and he was told that he was going to be given the special job of becoming the new giver, who is the guy who remembers all the past of the town's history. Now this job is painful, and you're learning a lot about things that have been covered up for years, such as bee stings, but also wonderful things like snow and apples and color. Well, apples, I guess they've eaten apples. They've definitely eaten apples, but like the color of an apple and stuff like that. So things that have been totally blocked out of this town's history are things that he's learning about, and he learns that not all the things that they're doing in their town are good, and he wants to be able to change that, so he has to take an extreme risk, and it's a lot of danger and excitement towards the middle and end of the book. I've really always enjoyed this book, and it's a bummer that it's only number 10, but I mean, number 10 is still pretty good given that I've read way more than 10 middle grades. It's still up there in the top 10. It's just a bummer that the series has kind of ruined it for me. The next book that I have is Out of My Mind by Sharon M. Draper, and this is coming into 9th place. This is about a girl who has, I believe, CP, cerebral palsy, or some form of health condition that makes her wheelchair bound and unable to speak to others. But she is gifted a computer that allows her to communicate through typing, and because of that she's able to answer a lot of questions very easily during a trivia contest in her class, which gets her put on her quiz team at school. People still really have a lot of doubts about her being on there and think that she cheated to get on the team, and they're not always very nice to her. So it's kind of about her overcoming the bullying even though she can't speak, and how she's going to react to other people and other people are going to react to her. This book I read for the first time in high school. It was suggested to me by a family friend who actually has a daughter who is wheelchair bound and unable to speak, and she read it and got super emotional over it and recommended it to me, and I've read it a couple different times since then, and it is still one of my top books. I love the representation of disabilities and how sometimes people think that if you're in a wheelchair and you can't talk, you don't know what's going on around you. And this book is like a stick it to the man. That is not true. We know everything you're saying, so don't give us that crap kind of thing. And I love her feisty attitude, but also her intelligence that is really shown in this book. So coming in slot number 8 is The Bone Sparrow by Zana Fralian. I read this book a couple years ago and absolutely loved it. This is about a boy who is kind of a refugee, and as he was fleeing to New Zealand, he was caught, and him and his family are now in a kind of like a concentration camp. Not as horrible, but not good. It's a very low quality living facility. I believe it's all outside. They're intense. Everybody's sick, and it's just not a good place to be living. While he's living there, he meets a girl who is, I believe, oh, it's been so long since I've read this, but it's a girl who has a notebook, and it's written by a mother that she lost. So they kind of get together, and the girl sneaks into the camp, and they start reading together, and she starts teaching him how to read because it's something, or he starts teaching her how to read. Yes, he starts teaching her how to read. She doesn't know how to read, but he does. So he starts reading it to her, and they become friends, but then a lot of things happen, and people are getting caught, and just a lot of horrible things happen. It is a true refugee survival book. The weird thing about this is a Disney and Hyperion book, and this is actually a book that I found at the dollar store. So I picked this up. I was like, oh, it's a Disney book. It'll be kind of cute. It was really pretty. I love sparrows. Sparrows are like my symbol, kind of, not only as religious symbol for me, but it's just a symbol of strength and caring that I've always related to, so I love sparrows. So I picked up this book simply based on the cover and quickly reading the synopsis, and it became one of my all-time favorite books, and I absolutely love this book still and highly recommend it if you can find it. It is a really, really good book. So the next book is actually a recent ad, but coming in slot number 7 is Nevermoor, The Trials of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. If you guys don't know what this is about, which I'm sure you do because it's super hyped on BookTube right now, but this is about a girl named Morrigan who on her 11th birthday is going to die due to a curse. But as it's about to strike midnight on her birthday when the curse is coming after her, she is rescued by a man named Jupiter North, who takes her to the land of Nevermoor. Nevermoor is full of magic, full of excitement, and she is told she has to compete in trials in order to stay there, and the trials involve having a special talent which she doesn't think she has. So this book actually I read, I think last month? I think I read it last month. Either last month or the month before. And I was so sucked into it. Honestly, there's like this race in here. And that chapter is the most beautifully written chapter I have ever read. And I absolutely love everything about it. And after I finished reading the book, I went back and just reread that chapter where there's like this big race because it was so good. This book is super, super hyped over in the UK booktuber world. But I'm hoping that more people will read this over in the US because I think it is not quite as good as Harry Potter, but it definitely has a lot of Harry Potter vibes to it that is definitely talked up. And also it's got like a feisty female character that I think is really important for people to see because she's feisty, but she's also sweet and kind-hearted and takes care of people. So I think it's a really good book and I highly suggest it to anyone. So the next book is actually the book that I just read and finished last week. Coming in slot number 6, it is The Book Wanderers by Anna James. If you are over in the UK, this also goes by Tilly and the Book Wanderers, but in the US, it is the Pages and Company series entitled just The Book Wanderers. This is about a girl named Tilly who for 11 years has kind of been a loner since her mom disappeared when she was a baby. She really kind of copes with being a loner through reading books all the time. Her grandparents own a bookstore, and she basically lives in there to read. So she's always got a book open, and one day she meets Anne from Anne of Green Gables, and then she meets Alice from Alice in Wonderland, and then suddenly she's sucked into Wonderland. She learns that she has the ability to travel inside books and communicate with characters from books, so she tells this to her grandfather, and he reveals that they are a long line of book wanderers, and he takes her to get the proper training to be a book wanderer. However, she also thinks that something with book wandering has to do with her mother's disappearance, and she will stop at nothing to discover what happened to her mother. This book was so magical that I wanted to know why I wasn't a book wanderer. For all the amount of time that I read in bookstores and libraries, why have I never wandered into a book? This book felt so, like, it was fantastical, but it felt like it could happen, and I think that that's what made it so wonderful. This has really become one of my favorite books of all time, and actually would probably be a little higher if it wasn't my most recent read, because I feel like some of these books have had, like, seniority to be the top 5, but this one I think I will definitely reread. I can't wait to read the second book, and it is a little slow going in the beginning, I will say that, but once you get into what's happening, it is fantastic, and I loved every second of it. So now we're into the top 5. So the 5th book on this list is A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. I read this book for the first time in 7th grade, and when I said I read this book for the first time in 7th grade, I skimmed through it because I had no interest in reading when I was in 7th grade at all. So I skimmed through it, but the character really stuck out to me of Meg. I really connected to her in a way that I don't normally connect to book characters, but as I've gotten older, I realized it wasn't Meg that I was connecting to, it was Charles Wallace. And honestly, this book is such a classic that I've read it, I want to say 4 times now. I think I've read it 4 times now, and anybody who doesn't like to read, I kind of push this book onto them because I find that people who don't like to read usually enjoy science and math more, and this book has so much science and math in it that I think that it's really made for anyone, whether you enjoy books and the fantastical elements of books like me, or if you're like my best friend who enjoys science and math. This book was definitely for both of us, for very different reasons. But if you guys don't know what this is about, it is about Meg, her little brother Charles Wallace, and Kelvin, who is their neighbor, and their father has been missing for a long time. So when they get the opportunity to go rescue him in a different time and space continuum, they jump at the opportunity. However, Meg is very doubtful of herself as a person and doesn't think that she can actually succeed with anything, where Charles Wallace is almost too confident and gets himself into a lot of trouble. Kelvin's kind of the medium that kind of goes between them and kind of evens things out, but it's ultimately Meg who has to save the day, and she doesn't think she can do it. So I think this book is great because it teaches kids that yes, you can have self-doubt, but at the end of the day, you will overcome it and you will be able to succeed. I absolutely love the characters of Charles Wallace and Kelvin. I fell in love with them, but I also think that people who are more science and math minded can really relate to Meg and relate to her story a lot in this. So definitely has become in my top 5 because it has just stuck with me for a long time. When I was supposed to read it in 7th grade and I skimmed it, I didn't really care about it at all, but when I got to high school I had to reread it, and then I had to reread it in college, and then I reread it with my best friend, and every time I've read it, I've discovered a new element. Like, there's always something that I've forgotten about it that sticks with me every reread. So coming in 4th place is probably the most classic that I have on here, and it's Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. This book I read for the first time in 4th grade, and I want to say I've read it maybe 7 times since then. I've read it so often just because sometimes when books get me down, like, or if I'm having a hard time getting into a new book, I pick it up because it's one that I can finish in a day, but it's also one where the characters are something that are so sweet and so kind that I just want to keep reading them. So this is one that, if you guys don't know what it's about, this is about a girl named Fern who rescues a baby pig who is going to be killed due to the fact that he was a runt, and she ends up having to take him to her uncle's barn once he gets too big to live inside her house. There the pig kind of comes into his own and befriends the other barn animals, but mostly he befriends a spider named Charlotte. When he finds out that he is up for being pretty much dinner, Christmas dinner. He has to find a way to save himself, but it's ultimately Charlotte who comes up with the plan and saves the day. This book is so sweet. I remember not only reading the book so much, but watching the movie so much, like the live action movie with Dakota Fanning. I just absolutely, when I need a book to just put me in the mindset of reading again, to make me feel good, this is the one that I go to. I love Charlotte's Web. I love the characters, and I'm absolutely, there are so many times that I've read this book that afterwards I've become a vegetarian temporarily because I just love Wilbur so much. None of my vegetarian stunts have really stuck, but there will be like days that I go without eating meat just because I read about Wilbur. So coming in third place is the book that changed it all for me. When I was in 7th grade, I really disliked reading. I had big issues with reading. I was a very slow reader. And I found out that I'm a slow reader because I get so involved into the book that I read every single detail of the book. I think about it, I kind of space out and dream about it, so it's really more that I'm just so into the books that's why I'm reading slow. However, it was really hard for me to keep up with reading stunts that we had at school, so we would have a week to read halfway through the book, and sometimes I didn't always get that far, not because I was distracted, just because that I was so into the book that I was just reading it slowly, kind of like when you want to eat something slowly because it tastes so good you don't want to swallow the last bite. That's kind of where I'm at with books when I read. But this book I read, I want to say in 2 days, and we had 2 months to read it in 7th grade, and it was just so good that I didn't want to put it down, and it just absolutely changed the reading game for me. I was so into it that not only was I daydreaming about it, but I also did nothing but read it. I didn't turn on TV, I didn't call my friends, I didn't go out and play. I just sat and read this book, and this was kind of the game changer for me that, yes, if I put my mind to it, I can read a book quickly and efficiently and still love it. So this book is The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. If you guys don't know what this is about a group of boys in the 1950s who are known as the Greasers, who go up against the Socs, which are like the preppy boys who have all the money and well taken care of and well groomed, and they're like college track guys, where the Greasers are more dirty, grimy, and they are probably like future mechanics and future like contractors and stuff like that, not people who would really standardly go off and go to college. They've also been known to get themselves into quite a bit of trouble, where the Socs also get themselves into trouble, but they have the type of parents who can bail them out of the trouble, where most of the people of the Greasers don't have parents or solid home lives. This specifically revolves around Ponyboy, who is the youngest of the Greasers, and he is caught in a situation where he witnesses something that he shouldn't have witnessed, and they have to run away and escape for a time being. The really cool thing about this book is I believe it takes place over just a span of a week, and so much action happens in a week that it is shocking that all that's possible. The other thing that I really love about this book is S.E. Hinton was 16 when she wrote it, and I feel like that was a huge deal to me when I was in 7th grade because I dreamed of being a writer, but I never thought I could, and I never thought that I could really do it if I couldn't even read the chapters that I was supposed to read in school. So this book, honestly, it just took me by surprise how much I loved it. It still sticks with me. I think about this book all the time. I think I've only read it the one time in 7th grade. I don't think I've ever reread it, but I do intend to reread it this year, so I am excited to do that. But also, I feel like I've never wanted to reread it just because I didn't want it to get ruined for me, because I feel like why I liked it in 7th grade would be very different from why I would like it now, but I have hope that I'll still enjoy it just as much as I did back then. So we're in the top 2, and coming in the number 2 slot is Because of Winn, Dixie by Kate D. Camilla. I have read this book, I want to say 6 or 7 times. This is about a little girl named Opal who lives with her father, the preacher, and she finds a stray dog at the Winn-Dixie supermarket. She ends up taking the dog home and kind of establishing him to be her best friend because she's new to town and hasn't made any friends. However, the dog has a mind of its own and decides to help her get friends. This has no fantastical elements, and the dog does not talk in it, but the dog, through ways that any standard dog would, helps her find these friends and helps her connect to the people in the town in a way she didn't know she could. And Winn-Dixie is just such a fabulous dog that when I read this, I just want to snuggle up with an animal. Like, I love this book so much. One of the first times that I read it was in 4th grade, but since then I have read it multiple times. My most memorable being when I read it in college, and I sat in a chair and read it for my children's literature class in a span of 2 hours and just did not move from the chair at the library because I was so like involved in the character's life that I went home and just cuddled my dog hardcore after reading it. I loved this book so much and still do. And if people need recommendations for a 4th grade book or like a 4th grade through like 8th grade book that anybody could really get enjoyment out of, I recommend this book because even though there's like one small sad part in it, it really does end on a happy note, and it's not like the tragic dog books or anything like that. It has a very happy ending, a very sweet ending, and I love everything about it. So it's time for the number 1 slot, and I'm sure by looking behind me, it's not going to be a surprise that my number 1 slot goes to Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling. This book is going to generally represent the whole Harry Potter series because if not, there would have been 7 books of Harry Potter in this stack and only a few of other books. If you guys don't know what Harry Potter is about, first of all, what's wrong with you? But second of all, this is about a boy who on his 11th birthday discovers that he is a wizard and he is taken to Hogwarts Witchcraft and Wizardry, where he learns that he is a child who survived a very violent attack when he was just a baby, and because of that, there are fears that the people who attacked him are going to come back and try to do their worst. Harry also is kind of looked down upon by some of the kids at school, but also worshipped by the others, so he's in a process of finding his best friends and his true friends, and that's what the first book's about. The rest of the series, I'm sure you guys know what Harry Potter is about, but it's just equally as amazing as the first book, and there are books in the series that I like even better than the first book, but the first book has the most magical elements to it. Reading it really puts me in a happy mindset. I think I've read the first book at least 10 times. I haven't read the whole series 10 times. Sometimes I'll just read the first book, sometimes I'll just skip through my favorites, but I've read the first one at least 10 times. Every time I read it, there is something new and magical about it that just makes me not want to put it down. I cannot say enough good things about Harry Potter. It really has its own special place in my heart, and everything that I do reading wise somehow leads back to this book. It was the first book that I truly fell in love with. I read it for the first time in 5th grade, and I watched the movie like as soon as it came out. There is nothing that I don't like about this book. It fills my heart in such special ways, and I just can't get over how much Harry Potter has changed my life, changed my world, and books are just magically amazing to me. All books are magically amazing to me, but there's just something about the Harry Potter books that are its own unique entity to me. So here are my official top 10 middle grade books. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and you guys are enjoying Believe-a-thon as much as I am. Shout out to Gavin for making it happen because it is really the time that I sat down and forced myself to read middle grade. Not force myself, but just really get to enjoy middle grade because I do love reading middle grade so much. It's never a forcing element, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!
Wasn't that a great video? Clearly books make me very happy. Now you can make me happy too. Click the subscribe button to follow my channel. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you think I did good. And the notification bell will let you know when I post new content. Also, follow my Instagram for more book shenanigans.